Every time I say that I'm an angry person or that I struggled with rage in my first year of sobriety, people always laugh and say that they can't imagine it. Anger doesn't have to be outward and explosive, though. It can also be a deep, boiling rage that you stuff down inside and don't let anyone see. I've been triggered to drink a few times in my 4 years of sobriety, and every time I have one of those big triggers, I immediately feel intense anger. I wanted to understand more about anger and how to help people with it. So I got certified as an anger management specialist through the National Anger Management Association. 87% of people with anger have at least one mental health condition compared to 39% of people without anger. People with anger are more likely to have gone through some really bad stuff in their lives too. It's a lot of data to break down, but basically, people with anger are anywhere from 2 to 4 times more likely to have experienced childhood adverse events like physical, verbal, or sexual abuse, neglect, growing up with a parent that struggled with alcohol or drugs, and experiencing adverse adult events like sexual assault, being physically attacked, or living with a spouse who has a problem with alcohol. So there's a lot that's behind an angry person. There's a lot of pain and there's a lot of hardship. I've told the sunglasses story on here a few times, so hopefully you've heard it because you've been listening to my other episodes. But if you haven't heard it, when I was 5 days sober for the first time that I quit, I broke my old cheap sunglasses and I flipped the frick out in front of my family. It was probably very embarrassing and weird for them all to see. I couldn't handle anything back then. When I quit for good, I had intense rage for the first year, and I couldn't understand why I was so angry. I had a lot of resentments too. I resented people for not helping me while I was drinking, even though, honestly, there was probably nothing they could have done. And I was pissed that other people could drink and I couldn't. It was so unfair. And that's a huge trigger for anger too, feeling like things are unfair for you. What I've heard from some people is that they get constantly annoyed in sobriety by little things and they can't tolerate anybody's crap. This is normal, but it's important for us to eventually be able to do two things. First, not exist right below our anger threshold all the time. And second, identify our anger triggers and discover why they are so triggering. The anger trigger is very important, but your emotional state and well-being are equally as important, like getting your shirt caught in the door and flipping out, or breaking your sunglasses. If you're anxious or chaotic, then you're going to respond to anger triggers a lot differently than if you're calm. Anger is called a secondary emotion because it never exists by itself, and anger is often accompanied by pain, and it's called pain's bodyguard sometimes. So you feel pain, but that makes you feel too vulnerable to experience, so you get angry instead so you don't have to feel the pain. But you don't have to be stuck in this anger cycle forever. I broke my new favorite sunglasses on the go a few months ago. They looked so good on me, but they were discontinued, so I couldn't replace them. Instead of flipping out, I laughed, and it felt so good not to be controlled by minor annoyances anymore. And that is totally possible for you too. The thing about anger is that we use it to feel more powerful so that we can avoid feeling vulnerable and small. If you're quick to get angry like I am, then you may be doing that because you can't feel angry and small at the same time. So it's better to just feel angry. Deep down, anger is about not getting your needs met. It's a secondary emotion, like I said, because it never exists by itself without another feeling. Usually that feeling is pain, and we push the pain aside because feeling angry is easier. When we drink, we make it impossible to deal with our anger because drinking numbs feelings and removes them from our awareness. So you may be coming into sobriety with years or decades of unresolved anger like I was. A 2018 review published in Psychological Violence concluded that people with a low frustration tolerance will use impulsive behaviors to attempt to regulate their emotions because they struggle to commit to long-term solutions. Alcohol and violence are two examples of impulsive behaviors that can quickly relieve frustration. Violence doesn't have to be towards others. It can be towards the self or towards other objects as well. A 2019 study found that wall punching was strongly associated with a feeling of relief afterwards. And research has found that getting this relief is the most common reason that people provide for punching walls or for other forms of non-suicidal self-injury. If you're an angry person or you have an intense negative emotion, when you drink or even when you pour that first drink, you're overcome with intense relief. This is because our emotions are too big and we don't have the tools to cope with them. An emotion becomes too big when it's stuffed down, avoided, or when we let things build up all day long. If you know a little bit about my story, then you probably remember that I didn't start drinking until I was 22. And that may seem really weird because so many problem drinkers start drinking at 13 or 15. But I didn't wait so long because I was doing well in life. It's just because I was doing other self-destructive things to attempt to cope. I just kept dabbling in different things to attempt to manage my emotions. But once I discovered alcohol, I was hooked. It did the best job. And nothing triggers me to drink like being angry, because that's when that relief feeling is the most intense. And if you're seeking out relief, it's because you don't know how to cope. You don't know how to ease your pain and suffering yourself. You have to go outside of yourself to relieve the feeling and bring down the intensity. And that's not sustainable. In my mind, it's all very similar. We have no coping skills. We don't take care of ourselves. We let things build up. We avoid our feelings. We struggle to communicate our needs and boundaries to others. And we have a low tolerance for discomfort. And because of this, we can't handle life. So we have to find something outside of ourselves to help. And that's what an anger management program is all about. It's helping you identify the need that you're trying to meet with your anger, to learn how to tolerate discomfort and to develop coping skills so you can manage the things that happen in your life without having it push you to urgency. Because once the feeling becomes urgent, it's very hard not to do something impulsive about it to make it go away or to bring down the intensity. A 2017 study looked at relapse and found that relapsers had higher levels of trait anger and poor anger expression. High anger predicted less abstinent days. People with high levels of trait anger felt like they were being treated unfairly often, and they experienced a lot of frustration, which led to more drinking. So it's really important to manage your anger when you quit drinking, or it's going to increase the likelihood of relapse. If this resonated with you and you want to work with me on your anger, then please visit soberpowered.com/anger or grab the link in the show notes. My first group starts on February 1st, and I'll be running it most months of the year. I'm really passionate about anger and making a difference in this and teaching people coping skills, but other options for you are therapy and getting in community with other people like you, because you'll learn coping skills from their examples too. So whatever you do, I hope that this has at least identified an area that you need to work on and brought it to your awareness. And I will talk to you in the next one.